Welcome to Peace of Mind for Pet Parents, the podcast by Bright Haven Caregiver Academy. I'm Gail Pope.
And I'm Karen Wylie. And together we're here to support you in navigating life with your aging or ill pets. We know how deeply you care for your beloved companions, and we're here to offer guidance, understanding, and resources for this meaningful journey.
Each episode, we'll explore topics that address the daily challenges, emotional realities, and choices you face as a pet parent, helping you and your pets find peace, comfort, and joy. Whether it's making sense of a new diagnosis, adjusting to changing needs, or simply seeking a place to feel understood, you're not alone. Thank you for being here with us.
Hello, and thank you for joining us here at Peace of Mind for Pet Parents. I'm Karen Wylie, here as always with Gail Pope. Over the past year, Gail and I have noticed something interesting, and that is that whether it's in groups of pet parents that we speak with, or questions we get via email, or in our community, pet parents are asking many of the same questions. Not because they aren't listening when we address them one or two times, but because those questions come from love and fear and wanting to do right by the animals that they care for. So today we want to talk about some of those questions that we've heard again and again, the ones that tend to surface when you're caring very deeply about your pet and feeling unsure about some of the choices that you may have to make. So if you've ever wondered whether you're doing enough or making those right choices, this conversation is for you. So Gail, let's start out because these questions seem to come up for almost everyone at some point. I'm going to ask you basically why you think that is for each of these questions. So the first one is, how will I know when it's time? That's got to be the most common question we hear.
As you were talking and introducing the topic, which of course I didn't know as usual what it was going to be. I was listening to you and the words, "is it time?" flashed straight into my mind. Then I thought, oh no, she's going to have thought of all sorts of devious questions. And then there it is. Actually, it's the most difficult one of all, isn't it?
What do you mean devious? Maybe this episode should be on trust. Trusting your partner.
Oh, no, dear.
But really, we do know that question comes up over and over again. It's so central to the love we feel, the doubts we have, and the fear we have of doing everything right. So when you hear the question of how will I know when it's time, why do you think we all struggle with it so much? Struggle with knowing or not knowing?
There are so many problems in this statement because it's used most widely as a judgment call for when should I make the appointment for euthanasia. It isn't necessarily always time for that. It isn't necessarily always time to actually pose that particular question. To me, if somebody asks, is it time? I need to obviously know their situation. It's a personal question. It's about knowing the person and their animal and their situation and what it might be time actually for. Because once you're equipped with enough information to actually join the family in their decision making, it may not be for euthanasia, it may be for a conventional path of treatment, it may be for surgery, it may be to step into the world of homeopathy or another holistic practice. So it could be, is it time, could reach out to an awful lot of different things. So I think, first of all, well, again, starting to get to know the person a little better and their situation. And talking, when we all get onto our ledge, all we can see is this huge yonder that we're going to leap into. But taking a few little baby steps back, letting go. Now my brain will actually help me, because before it was in a panic. That's where I go first of all with that question.
I do agree. It's a question that is commonly asked because it is associated with the perceived need for euthanasia, the worry that it is time for something dreaded like that. I think that question has prompted us over the last year to try to come up with ways to reframe how we look at the care of our pets, like with the living quality of life assessment, to be done on a weekly basis as you're caring for your pet, not as the day before your appointment, where you're trying to answer some numbers 1 through 5 to figure out whether it's time to euthanize or not. So yeah, I'm with you in that I hear you reframing the question, which is what we've tried to do, and ask, what is it really time for? What are some of the other things that could still be done, can be tried to provide comfort for the pet and also for you and your family?
To me, is it time? Begs the immediate answer, time for what? Then my old-fashioned brain goes to one of the sayings that my grandmother always used to say, if the going gets tough, the tough have to get going. Really, that follows this question all the way through, because it may be time to seek better health. It may be time to change a diet or a different doctor. It may be time for all sorts of baby steps along the way. Sometimes it can be darkest before the dawn, because let's face it, we all struggle with these kinds of horrible conflicted ideas and thoughts going through our brains in the middle of night. It is always darkest before the dawn. So sometimes we have to work through our darkness again before our mind and brain can join the conversation without us in a state of panic. I was just thinking again, the more you know, the more you're well armed you are, which is our approach to it. Let's learn as much as possible. Let's create a chart so that we can actually focus and put all these things into perspective on a daily or a weekly basis. And we can look back and say, oh, yes, that changed there. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. You can see the trajectory. So all of those things really help you to be armed with the right information so that you don't reach a point where you have to ask that question, because you answer it all the way through in your care.
Well, not to be flippant here, but I'm now wondering if it's time for Miss Callie to go over to her recliner.
I think she's perfect. She's just joining the conversation.
She is always joining the conversation. Our executive producer is on the job.
She's
Right.
probably saying it's time for treats. Are you going to be ready soon?
She is definitely a treat girl. And she's probably saying, it's time for you guys to move on to question number 2. So I was looking at our episodes and thinking about many of the questions we get. The second question seemed to come up is, what do I do if I disagree with what my vet is recommending? What do I say? How do I approach this whole thing? So I'm going to ask you to tackle that as well. Why do you think it's so hard for people to trust their own perspective, their own gut feeling, when they find themselves in this situation where their vet is saying something different than they are, or recommending something different than they feel is right for their pet?
That's come up for me quite a few times and with different ways. But wow, again, it's one of those things where it's brought about by fear that mingles with anger and worry and concern. I think sometimes, let's face it, your veterinarian only wants what's best. Sometimes in explaining what's going on and what the suggested treatment might be, the fear mounts in the caregiver and they become angry. Instead of asking appropriate questions, what are you thinking and why this? Or why are you suggesting that? They let their anger surface. And I've had so many people say, I got really angry with my vet. I'm not going back there again. We all have to realize that our vets are doing their best. If we do disagree, then take a breath, think about it. He's coming from his perspective, and maybe you're not seeing it the same. So if it's not something that you care to discuss with him because you're just too angry, then just let it go. Keeping your own balance and being objective, sometimes even saying, I'm so sorry, I didn't bring pen and paper with me. Would it be possible to just give me something so I can take some notes as we're talking? Just take a moment to step back from the situation if you're feeling the hackles rising.
Definitely asking the vet why they have come to that conclusion or how they've come to that recommendation. A lot of times nobody asks them that. They just act on the recommendation they're given. And yet, whenever they come up with a recommendation, it's something they have thought through. They do have something to say about why they think this recommendation is the best course of action. So just asking them to explore that a little bit more fully for you can be very helpful and give you more to think about as you're planning out the care for your pet.
Burning bridges by just becoming angry because you're fearful and worried is not going to serve anybody. well at all.
This question of what do I do if I disagree with my vet is often combined with how do I get a new vet? Should I find another vet? It's phrased differently, but they often are uncomfortable about going back to the vet they've been working with to get a little bit more information, and they're already vet shopping. I don't know
Yes,
about you, but for me, when my animals have a difficult diagnosis, or certainly if it's a terminal diagnosis, that is really the time you want to stay with your current health providers if at all possible, because they've got all the records. You're likely to feel more comfortable in that clinic setting with the people at the front desk or the techs that you know than starting all over again. There certainly are times when starting new is the right thing to do as well. But my own feeling is to try to stay with the vet you have by being more assertive with what you want to ask about, the information you want to learn about. Just continue advocating for your pet. Then I use this word advocate. What do you think advocacy for our pets looks like? If a pet owner is going to advocate for their pet in a care situation with their vet, what do you see them doing, Gail? What do they say or do?
I think they present whatever situation that they're trying to decide from the animal's perspective rather than from the human perspective, so that they are embracing body, mind, and spirit. They're explaining the situation again from the way the animal is dealing with it, looking at it, living it. And sometimes that will come across in a much easier fashion to understand.
Oh, that's just a great way to phrase it. Because, of course, all those observation forms that we encourage everyone to be filling out every day and every week, that's the kind of information that helps you see it from your pet's perspective.
Right. Yes. Put yourself in his shoes and see how he feels. What's he thinking about dinner, walks, treats, and so forth? There are many
Right.
things to be considered in the way
Oh.
that you're going to behave. You may not enjoy your walks anymore if you're not eating the food you like. You may not enjoy going to the bathroom anymore because something's changed. It's all about the being. It's all about the being. I think as
Right.
well, backing into that conversation a little too, I think sometimes a change of vet may be appropriate if a person who has always treated their animal maybe conventionally or maybe holistically, and now they're seeing emerging, and they really need a vet who can practice integratively and take the best of both worlds. Or they may have always worked holistically and they just want to change. They're getting more interested in this isn't working. I want to try something else. But I do think the world of integrative medicine is something for people to explore if they haven't, because it does broaden everything. It gives you so many more options going forward.
Great suggestion. Okay, question number 3. I was seeing it comes up a lot. Is am I giving up too soon?
What time is it? Can I go now?
What do you hear underneath those words when someone is asking that?
Generally, that would be the beginning of a longer conversation or a consultation, because you can't answer that question emotionally. You're saying, no, of course not. But you don't know the facts. So until you actually know the story, all you can do really is to encourage the person who has said that to you to share more about their situation. Because it isn't about giving up and giving up too soon. It is about what's going on. It's more about making the right choice based on all that's going on. And making that right choice isn't giving up, because when you give up, you blame yourself.
It's a great point to make.
Well, I
But
think if we feel we've failed at something, that's awful. So if we've made a decision for chemotherapy, for instance, then we wish we hadn't done it, we carry that blame. It can be for even smaller things than that and bigger things than that. Again, it's finding the balance in how we think as well as how we live.
that's great. You're right. It does also require more time. I think we can't give someone an answer to that question if it just comes through email.
No.
And we don't know who they are and we haven't heard anything about their pet. But in a consult situation, certainly where it's one-on-one, I do feel we've addressed this question in our weekly cuppa and conversation groups where
Yes.
someone will bring it up because that is the question they're wrestling with. We can ask questions to help them think things through, and they can also get opinions from the other pet parents who are there at that particular weekly group meeting. But you're right, it isn't something that can be answered quickly. Because again, just as we've said about the other questions too, it's not just about the caregiver, it's about the pet's perspective, it's about the rest of the family, it's about the whole situation. There's a lot involved in these questions, which is why I think they are asked so frequently. Maybe not in the exact wording that I'm suggesting today, but there's still the question underneath it all. The last question, is it okay to hope for a natural death?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I have had that asked actually, and I'm just thinking back over the very rarely, but yes, people, okay, it's actually quite a big question, isn't it? Because
It's a
I think
huge
people
question.
have different cultural or religious or spiritual beliefs, and that can sit in the middle of this question sometimes, can't it?
It sure can. It's
I
like
mean,
they feel they need permission to consider it and to ask the question. It's obviously very important because they love their pet so fully and deeply. Just as we've talked about over this year so many times, when we're talking about human death and dying, we're assuming a natural death for the human. And for there to be medical aid or anything like that with a human, that's the exception to the rule. Whereas when it comes to our animals dying, euthanasia is the general route. It's assumed that's how the death will take place. I think that's part of why people are asking, is it okay? Because they're bucking the trend. They're looking at the options and they're saying, okay, I really don't feel good about that one. What about this natural death stuff that I haven't heard too much about? They might have heard it's cruel to do. It's much better to euthanize, which you and I both disagree with in general. Our goal is always to allow a natural death whenever possible and to only choose euthanasia if it's medically necessary in terms of addressing pain needs.
I think you just nailed it in something you just said.
Oh, good.
And that comes down to the word choices. And you're right. Animals have taught me a particular way over time, and I am focused on trying to achieve that. I have learned to be focused on the fact that because we're working in the world of animal care, that we have choices at the end of life. And we don't have to lean necessarily to one direction or the other. And if we do, that's okay. We all carry our natural biases. However, if we can look at end of life as a place where choices will be made, that actually opens things up a little more rather than negativity and positivity and this is right and that's wrong. When the time comes, it may well be that Johnny dies in his sleep on his own. Oh, gosh, all that worrying I was doing. It may be that we do need to sit down and have a conversation about, is it time to actually consider euthanasia? Or it may be a conversation that says, so how do you feel about this? Do you think it's time to continue with this journey? We seem to be doing okay. Acknowledge my own fear of this process because I don't understand it. We all have that. None of us really understand death and dying until we can do it. We don't have that memory to work from. I think that makes sense, doesn't it?
I think it does too. What do you want people to most understand as they explore the possibility of a natural death?
Heaven only knows. Education comes down to that all over again without understanding what the word natural actually means in this context. We use the word natural in daily life in so many different applications. So when someone talks about a natural death, a lot of people are, what do you mean? What is a natural death? So I think actually stepping back to that word, what does it mean to die naturally? What do I need to learn about that for myself as well as my animals? We're all going through the same process at a time in our lives. So I think an awful lot of this conversation, which is interesting putting these questions together, comes down for me to baby steps, but under the umbrella of education. The more we know, the more we understand, the more we believe, the more easy life, living, and dying all become.
Then we can discover the right option for us.
Exactly.
And for that pet and these circumstances. If you heard your own question being asked somewhere in this conversation today, that doesn't mean you're unsure or that you're doing anything wrong. It just means you care very deeply about your pet. All these questions are part of loving an animal through a time of change and uncertainty and physical transition. You don't have to answer them all at once, as Gail is saying. We're really glad you're with us, and we will continue to do our best to help you find the right answers for yourself, your pet, your family, and your situation, because there is no one right answer for all situations. Thank you for being with us. Bye-bye now.
I thank you. And can I just say one last thing that occurs to me? It may be one of the most important parts of this conversation.
Okay.
And that actually is, I'll say goodbye and please take care of your own self. Be kind to you, because you can't go into any of these kinds of discussions or fears unless you have to be kind to yourself.
Yes. We generally put ourselves through the ringer with all these care decisions that we have to make. So it's a good reinforcing statement to make.
Sorry about that. Goodbye.
Thank you for joining us on Peace of Mind for Pet Parents. We hope today's episode has offered you support and insight as you care for your aging or ill pets.
Remember, it's not just about the end, it's about living well at every stage of life. To continue your journey with us, explore more resources at Brighthaven Caregiver Academy's website, brightpathforpets.com, where you'll find guides, assessments, and a caring community of pet parents like you.
Until next time, may you and your pets find comfort, connection, and peace in every moment. Take care.